boy, is it interesting to hear this old right-wing talk radio host, Mike Pence. It's amazing how many of these guys got their starts as right-wing talk radio hosts. It's just astonishing. But in any case, here's Mike Pence on, what show was this? Face the Nation, Meet the Press? George Stephanopoulos. So it wasn't. It's Sunday. Face the Republicans. Oh, this week. Yeah. Okay. Well, it's the same thing. It's all Republicans all the time. That's the Sunday shows. After all, they're owned by big corporations, and the big corporations are owned by Republicans, and on it goes. But anyhow, here's a mashup that Shano put together. Because Mike Pence kept filibustering and trying to go off on tangents and things. So we just kind of boiled it down to the essential essence of it. Just for those of you who might have been, I don't know, on vacation, kind of missed what was going on. The state of Indiana passed this so-called Religious Freedom Act. Astonishingly, and this makes twice, by the way, in the past 3 weeks. Astonishingly, the Washington Post, who is now, isn't it Jeff Bezos? Yeah, Amazon. Jeez, of course. Well, I don't know if he has any say over the editorial content, but a couple of weeks ago, the Washington Post went with this, amazing story and headline about Hillary Clinton's hiding emails, self-server in her own bedroom in a Chappaqua. Oh my God, she can't be Well, yeah, I'm slightly exaggerating, but the essence of the story was that somehow Hillary Clinton had done this and nobody had ever done such a thing before. It turns out Jeb Bush, when he was governor of Florida, not only used jeb@jeb.org as one of his principal email addresses with which he did state business, but the records laws require that you turn those things over after you leave. It took him 8 years. It took Hillary Clinton a few months or less than a year. And somehow the newspapers didn't emphasize that or mention that in the headlines. Maybe it's buried in the story. I don't know. So anyhow, it happened again. There are 19 states, I believe. There's a bunch of states anyway, that have these so-called Religious Freedom Acts. In fact, Neil McCabe is going to be on in the second hour trying to defend these things. And, the essence of the law, in theory, is that the government can't restrain you in your practice of your religion. Now, this is kind of silly that these are being passed by the states because, the Establishment Clause, the First Amendment, prevent the government from either providing a test. Not the Establishment Clause. What's it called? Yeah, it's the Establishment Clause. Yeah, no test for public office shall be based on religion. Number one, that's in the Constitution itself. And then the First Amendment, basically says the government shall pass no laws forbidding the free expression of religion. But here's where it gets bizarre: is this most of these and there's, you could argue that there is a legitimate case to be made for the state, or even in a civil proceeding, for example, a Catholic church not being sued because they choose not to perform brisses or weddings of people who are not Catholic, or pick your church, right, or synagogue or whatever it may be. But that's not what this is about. You'll recall up until, what was it, 78 or 87, it was sometime back in that day, the Mormon Church did not allow African Americans to become, quote, priests. Every man in the Mormon Church essentially is a priest. So you couldn't become a full member because blackness was the mark of Cain. It was in their religion. It's in the Book of Mormon, I believe. If not, if it's in one of the commentaries. And so that was their liberty, right? Their religious liberty. Discriminate people. Well, what happened was that kind of got blown up for the Mormons because federal law, and as well as many state laws, said you can't discriminate against people based on their race. In many of the states where there are these religious freedom laws, and I put those in quotes. There are protected classes of people who are essentially exempted from those. In other words, you can discriminate against somebody based on whether they're not wearing shoes when they come into your restaurant, right? Perfectly legal. You could put a sign in the front window of the restaurant that says, no shoes, no shirt, no service. Nobody's going to stop you. But you can't put a sign in the front window of a restaurant that says no Jews, no Catholics, no gay people. Well, actually you can in Indiana right now. And the reason why this story in the Washington Post is so disingenuous, and the entire debate that happened on television over this last weekend, most of which, well, all of which I missed because I was on airplanes all weekend, but I've gone back and listened to pieces of it and certainly read the articles about it. The reason it was so disingenuous, point out that in those other states, and as far as I know, all of them, perhaps it's just most of them, gay people are a protected class. So if you are allowed to discriminate against people who don't wear shoes into your restaurant, that's fine. You could even do that arguably because it's your religion that everybody should wear shoes. But you can't do it because they're gay. You can't do it because they're black. You can't do it because they're female. You can't do it because of their particular religion. Except in Indiana. Indiana does not have this carve-out. Indiana have a specific law that protects the rights of LGBT people. And therefore, any business in Indiana, and I want to get into more detail on this in a second, and lay out exactly what a person is. Any person in Indiana, which is pretty expensive, can discriminate. Do we have time to play a clip? Barely. Here's Mike Pence over the weekend squirming.
So this is a yes or no question. Is Advance America right when they say a florist in Indiana can now refuse to serve a gay couple without fear of punishment?
Well, let me explain to you the purpose of this bill.
So yes or no, if a florist in Indiana refuses to serve a gay couple at their wedding, is that legal now in Indiana?
George, this is where this debate has gone.
It said it would protect a Christian florist who against any kind of punishment. Is that true or not?
George, look, the issue here is, is tolerance a two-way street or not?
Does that mean that Christians who want to refuse service, or people of any other faith who want to refuse service to gays and lesbians, that it's now legal in the state of Indiana? That's a simple yes or no question.
George, the question here is...
One fix that people have talked about is simply adding sexual orientation as a protected class under the state civil rights laws. Will you push for that?
I will not push for that.
Do you think it should be legal in the state of Indiana to discriminate against gays or lesbians?
George...
It's a yes or no question.
Come on. Hoosiers don't believe in discrimination.
Yeah, right. There's no bigots in Indiana. Got a great ad for you coming up.